In the old days, people tried to explain natural phenomenon and make up stories about it, and these stories became a dominant characteristic in society. That's normal, and that's how people did things. This is how we would remember things. But that didn't make them more accurate than what we understand now. That makes them less accurate only if what we have now is more accurate. This is a solar eclipse. It's not a snake biting its tail. It's not the sun being swallowed up by something mysterious, since right before a solar eclipse, you can see that the moon is in the same sky. See also stories talking about how the moon was supposed to light the night, which implied that it didn't come out during the day, which of course was wrong. The moon has not always been stuck on the dark side of the earth. That's not true, because at the same time these individuals would talk about the lunar cycle being 1 month, which wouldn't happen if it was always on one side of the planet, at night only. Later on, not very much further on, we figured out that the moon was probably between us and the sun, obviously, and from that we could gather that since nothing else did this, that it was probably orbiting the Earth, and we are probably orbiting the sun. That happened much later. And dogma and tradition made it to where you weren't allowed to say that without potentially being locked up in a tower. Because reality is not important if it doesn't affect you directly every day. Likewise, when you explain something like this as being a CCD imager in a camera overloading, in fact, most camera imagers really do overload like this. They detect this as an overload of brightness, and they default the signal to being black and try to super unexpose it by discharging it as much as possible in that area. They substitute it with a white dot, and, well, you get the idea. People still look at this and say, it's a black dot sun, because, reasons. So when I get someone requesting something on purpose, rather vague, someone asks me, well, what about this thing about the sun being black and rotating inside of it? There's a core, and it's black, and it's rotating. And I took this person seriously, and maybe I shouldn't have done that, so let's go back to our first image here, and our next. From the center of the sun out to about a quarter of its diameter, it's so hot and under so much pressure that some people don't understand or don't believe that it would produce light because it's so supersaturated and so highly pressurized. A lot like the beginning of the universe, it might be opaque and therefore effectively and counterintuitively black. It isn't, nor does it just produce energy in the X-ray range. It's still ridiculously hot and still bright, but you wouldn't be able to detect it because you'd be, incinerated. But in fact, it is actually bright across the entire range. In fact, it's brighter than you would be able to understand, comprehend. Sort of like the CCD imager overloading. People don't get that, that might actually be the way it is. But let's talk about the core of the sun versus the Fat Man bomb. Something on the order of 600 million tons of hydrogen are fused into 500 some odd million tons of helium, and about 4 million tons turns into energy. It's annihilated into energetic output, like light and heat, and a cast-off flow of material, which we call the solar wind. Now, that's a lot of material. Now, let's compare it to an H-bomb. Let's do the Fat Man. It's like 65 kilograms of uranium that was put through fission process, and out of all of that, about less than a gram of material actually went through fission, and it was still much, much less powerful than it could have been. And, well, that's about it. We don't really have any scale to understand these sorts of things, but we can kind of comprehend them. It's just escalating numbers and such to us. But none of this is actually mysterious. I mean, it's humbling and powerful, but we understand it. And saying, I don't know, doesn't create an escape hatch from dealing with what we do know. Just because a person on YouTube or on the net or in person tells me, I don't know, doesn't mean they somehow have the upper hand to disprove reality. That's insane and intolerably stupid of them. We've understood this stuff for a very long time, and some people don't like that because it kind of leaves them out of the discussion. Also, how many people can spot the error in this diagram and the angles? Hint, hint. Which way is the moon orbiting, and what angle is the Earth depicted? Anyway, this does not indicate the sun has a black core in it. This is an effect caused by the CCD imager freaking out. It is not an indication of some special snowflake vision of things by looking for a dime store VCR and camera that probably still does beta, or even a modern one that does this, as somehow being proof that old technology has been altered so we can't see the truth. The sun's core is not black, because it's not. Light takes a very long time to come out because a fairly large amount of the sun is effectively a soup of electrons and protons and neutrons that are fusing together and continually recombining and disassociating, and the energy, the photons of energy in light take forever to come out. It's insanely hot, and you could say that in a way of thinking about it, it's opaque, but it doesn't mean that you're looking at something special here and you've discovered some sort of secret hidden fact or some ancient wisdom from some old story about the sun standing still for a day. Reality is more important than other people's need to be significant. So, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.